All right. Good evening, guys. Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is the weekly check-in for Creativity 202, Cohort D, Lesson 5, March 28th, 2023. So just back from a week-long conference in Pittsburgh where we were examining the number one issue out of that 150 college professors, deans, and vice presidents of academic affairs, and that was what to do about ChatGPT that's the AI chatbot. So we actually had a guy making a presentation. I've been studying it, and he asked the assembled conference attendees to make a list of their top three concerns about ChatGPT, and gave them 5 minutes to record their individual lesson or their insights. While he was doing that, he asked ChatGPT the same question: what is the impact of ChatGPT on higher education? And then compared the list that ChatGPT came up with the concerns of 150 professors and deans. Same list. On that basis, I became very interested in ChatGPT because I'm of the opinion that since you can't beat them, you better join them. And you better figure out how to get in front of the technology. Like, how are we going to use this electricity or railroad or infernal combustion engine? These moving pictures. And so I've been working hard on trying to figure out how to exploit the technology. So I was testing this thing called Koala Writer, which proposes to be a AI blog post writer that sits on top of Chat GPT, but also includes the dynamic keyword research into what's happening at Amazon and Google. So it incorporates SEO, search engine optimization sensibility, into your writing. So I asked it, I was considering whether or not to buy it. And I said, well, here's my test. What does Dr. Ken Long teach as his primary concepts for managing fear and greed in the markets? Because I'm going to be interviewed on a podcast in a couple weeks on that. And I said, well, why not? 2 minutes later, I had a 2,000-word article that was ready for publication as is. It was that good. It nailed it. It gave about the 5 top things that I talk about when I talk about that. And when I read that, it reminded me of 3 other things that I would have added to it. So now between the Chat GPT prompting and my own addition to it, I have a really good set of prep notes to cover for that podcast. And so I decided to buy that little writer at a good deal, a lifetime license to it, and it gives me 100,000 words of production. So I've already had it write about 4 or 5 articles today that I'm going to be able to use, on in the tortoise community practice, but also at the military college. And I'm investigating right now how to compile my 1,000 pages of writing and FAQs about trading and 1,000 hours of coaching from the research weekends and the all of the creativity coaching sessions, and have ChatGPT analyze that as the body of knowledge for reference, rather than using open source, all of Google and all that jazz, which is what ChatGPT does. I want to have it focus on that body of knowledge, but use the language model that comes from the wider session. And then I'm going to ask it to analyze my stuff for inconsistencies, conflicts, hypocrisies, inadequacies, and uncertainties, and use that to ask me questions to help clarify my material, and then to organize that. I'm going to see if I can get my son to design a chat bot so you can ask Ken and then it should be able to generate an answer from the body of knowledge, and then I can approve the answer or not, or edit it. And then if I approve it, and when I edit it and approve it, it'll go back into the body of knowledge and raise the bar just a little bit because of improved feedback from a human in the loop, which is how ChatGPT actually built its patterns of recognition. If I can do that, then I will have created the best version of myself to use as a teaching assistant for any body of knowledge that I'm trying to represent in the classroom. And I'll be able to help our individual military officers develop their own personal digital learning assistant so that they could have that little assistant with them. And as they see things that they trust and like and investigate, they can put it into the trust pile, into the dubious pile, or into the investigate pile. And then they can ask that little chatbot just to be continuously running to sort out what all that stuff might mean and offer its best guess for the human to set up. So I'm going to work with DARPA, the guys who invented the internet, on trying to figure out how to do that using that technology. So I'm pretty pumped about the week that I spent out there. The second thing that was really fun was I gave them a workshop on what we're doing in here with the combination of individual creativity from Fletcher, plus true storytelling from Boji, plus the body of knowledge on trading that we're trying to learn. That's the three-headed integration that we're trying to achieve. My sense is that individual creativity plus collaborative group learning and true story is the maximum sustainable rate of learning for any other body of knowledge that you want. It went over so well, and there were a couple of the senior fellows that had been in the organization for 40 years, that there was a couple command encores for that, including one to the assembled masses, because they're at the 50-year mark of the organization, and they realize they've just about exhausted the mine on developing econometric simulations to have business schools teach and evaluate business plans. Like, you play a simulation in competition, you start a business to sell shoes, and you make decisions based on feedback from the market, and then you use that to understand how to run a business. Those things have been proved because of the science of economics, and there's a very good fidelity in the kinds of responses you get from the sim. What's not done, however, is how to figure out non-player character positions or responses when you're doing non-financial policies. Like, I'm trying to bring peace to the valley, or I'm trying to conduct negotiations, or develop a program of action in a community that all the stakeholders could at least support a little bit. How do I represent all of those other different personalities, positions, stakeholders, and values? In my opinion, ChatGPT allows you to study a body of knowledge, turn that into a non-player character with some depth, and you can get human-like responses in a dialogue with them, and then you can use that to drive the responses of these simulations. So the combination of ChatGPT and then the idea of creativity and true storytelling allowed those guys to make a decision to steer the organization for the next start of the next 50 years using our model of safety, trust, and truth leads to opportunity. So it's suffice it to say that the combination of creativity and true storytelling has got the attention of one of the premier academic organizations in the world that studies experiential learning at the graduate school level. So I'm pretty confident in that what we're doing is very sound and has the attention of a lot of good researchers who are going to do some heavy lifting on this. So all in all, it was a pretty interesting week, and I really felt that we've opened the door to some genuine new insights about learning, collaborative learning, team building, and authenticity. Because let me tell you what the future looks like. There is an avalanche, or a glacier, pick your model, of pseudo-human text coming at you generated by ChatGPT and all the other AI bots. Your job is going to be to figure out what's authentic, human, true, and trustworthy. That means you got to have a combination of creativity and critical thinking to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff. What is genuine? What is true? How are you going to build these circles of trust that allow you to engage with and protect yourself against or exploit all of this AI generated crap stuff, mainline, just generic, do no harm kind of vanilla strategies. So, in my view, the true storytelling circle is one of the ways in which you become very tuned into what genuine human storytelling and truth telling sounds like. And it allows you to build trusted networks that can evaluate proposals from many different perspectives. It's insurance against the mindless acceptance of whatever comes across the screen, which is 95% of the time going to be developed or more developed by AI. That little chatbot writing program that I bought yesterday was a one-day founders release. There is a corporate version of that thing that was going for a lifetime license fee of $25,000, and they sold that out in 2 hours. And that thing, the corporate license is available to produce 50 million words of output a month. So you ask it a question or tell it to write a certain thing, and it produces an article. That corporate license at $25K lets you produce 10 million words. And I'm telling you what, it is persuasive and SEO optimized. And I don't know if copywriters out there are going to be able to compete with that much longer as an entity. So I say all that simply to say, I felt like in that conference, my mind was primed for a combination of both critical thinking, collaborations, and creativity as a consequence of the work that we've been doing in here, for a year. And what you got, every week and I get 2 or 3 sessions a week. So my brain is like super saturated with popcorn popping all the time, and tons of output. I probably sent out 40 emails today once I got back to work, connecting different people across Army University and the world onto some of the projects that occurred to me while I was there. And it was as natural and easy as falling off a log because I'm accustomed to thinking expansively when I'm in that mode and then being able to write effectively. I asked it, hey, tell me what the primary teachings of Dr. David Boji on true storytelling is like, and make sure you talk about coaching and indigenous ways of learning. That was the 1-sentence prompt. And it gave me a 2,500 word essay that I sent right to Boji because it exactly nails everything that he's done in his 45-year career and that he can use to help promote the good news stories about true storytelling. I had to make maybe 1 or 2 edits in it, and it was good to go. It was a beautiful explanation of his work in a way that was written for the tone of an SEO optimized, clear communication. It lets you pick, if that's not enough, it lets you pick all these other tones too. Like I could be naive, cheerful, warm, excited. The only thing it didn't have was the grumpy old man cynic, which is the normal tone of voice that I use when I'm writing at work. But I suppose if it can study my own writing enough, it can generate that tone just from the way I typically write. So I just wanted to share that with you because that is connected to this little app that's in Zoom, which does this beautiful transcribing and summarizing inside Zoom. So that was my introduction. So what I'm going to do, since I'm still talking, is I'm going to hit the highlight button, and in about 10 seconds, it's going to generate a summary of the last 11 minutes of what I've been saying. And we'll see how that goes. So that's my check-in for this week. Everything's going well here, and always good to see you guys. And really looking forward to your stories today. So that's my check-in. Aho, Luke, how are you doing, sir?
All going well here. Kids are well, just trading this week. Got a busy weekend and then Easter next weekend. But yeah, otherwise, all good. Really enjoyed the US session. Read, listened to that on Monday, my Monday. And actually went back and listened to the Euros from last year. That was gold. That was just amazing. So I use that. I cheat. I use all those as springboards into my findings for this lesson. So
Yeah.
yeah, really good. Uh,
Yeah, I'm excited to see if I can get all the audio from all of our previous sessions transcribed into a PDF, and then in a one giant PDF document they say, "Hey, Chat GPT, summarize this, synthesize that." That, I mean, we're sitting on a mountain of gold. And what it's going to help me with is a problem that I've had, that we've had actually so many cohorts of guys going through the various lessons, that even though I give people access to the FAQs and the other recordings, it's not even fair to ask them to go find stuff. You know what I mean? It's like too much. But then I feel, on my bad days, I can feel a little grumpy because, well, what's in there? Why don't they just go look? And then I realize, not fair to ask them to hunt it all down. I got to find some way to make that accessible. So if I can take a look at a chatbot executive assistant for learning, that is going to be more than revolutionary. Um, I'm trying to persuade my son that's in his interest to learn how to do that in Python, to write the app and write the bot that allows us to do that. So I hope to be able to entice him into that, because that's. Um, I sent that note to the guys at Koala and said, "Well, that's not really in our mission." I said, "Dude, you are leaving billions on the table. Just to let you know. Just to let you know. Change your frame about who your clients are, because they designed the thing for copywriters, and they're not even thinking about educators. And the military applications of this are off the chart. Off the chart. I went and briefed my general today, and his jaw about fell off. So anyway, good to hear. And Jeff, why don't you give us a quick check-in? How are we doing?
Yeah, all good. A little bit tired, but that'll probably be the norm for the foreseeable future. So everything's
Yeah,
good here.
that's good to hear. Art, how are things going?
Things are going good. Keeping busy, and with Holy Week coming up next week, we have some extra singing that we'll be doing, and I'm enjoying that. And I really enjoyed the workshop that I took Saturday. It was
Oh, the
it was
PRX
nothing.
one.
Yeah, the PRX one.
I
So
was not lying, was I?
you weren't
I
lying,
did not tell a lie.
and I'll touch on that a little bit in my share, but it was yeah, all's good.
Yeah, those guys are good. Aho. Dan Blum, get yours on. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Um, I've we had a very nice baby shower for my oncoming granddaughter who's due next month. So pretty excited about that. Um, and very extremely interested in everything you said about Chat GTP. I've been researching that myself, and it's pretty amazing. I've got a blog post I'm writing for my writers group called "Is Chat GPT the Death of Writing?" But now I guess I have to look at this koala as well. I've looked at some others like WordTune,
Yeah.
and you definitely can get a lot of work done with these tools. And I agree with you that we want to use them, not fight them. So whenever a teacher type comes up to me and talks about her worries that kids are going to be cheating on tests, I say, well, you got to give them in-class tests where it's all coming out of their own head, but then when they're at home, assume it's an open book test and say, use Chat GPT to construct this amazing essay or
or
whatever.
better yet,
Because that's what they're going to need to do when they're in the working world.
well, here's the skill. Here's the skill. Design the best Chat GPT query that produces the best Chat GPT
Yes.
answer for our general purpose question.
Yeah,
Because,
all kinds of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
because 100% of the deans and professors were worried about the risk to business as usual. 0%, except me, were concerned with how do I identify the critical cognitive skills that are going to be needed by commanders, decision makers, staff officers, and researchers to be able to leverage the power of the tool. Nobody was worried about how to take advantage of the technology. It was like if Ben Franklin came in with a basket full of electricity, and all anybody in the audience would say, well, how are we going to stop from getting shocked? What's going to happen to the flint and steel industry for starting fires and candles? Think of the candles that we're not going to be able to use. And nobody thinking about what can we do with electricity, you know?
So the question is, do you see problems or do you see opportunity? I choose to see opportunity.
And part of the reason, I was going to say part of the reason that they did it that way was because the prompt that was given to them was, what are the issues that you see, which has sort of a negative valence to it. If they'd have said, what are both the problems and the opportunities, it might have triggered,
I get a different answer.
So that tells you how important the seed phrase is when you want to generate a written or oral response. The way you frame the question is everything. Just
and
briefly, one
briefly,
word would have been amazing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
Oh, that's all right. I also just wanted to say I don't know what I'm going to do with all this. I wish I almost wish I was 25 again and that I had a job working on this stuff now.
Yeah.
But I have gotten access to the Bard AI from Google and the new Bing AI from new Bing Chat from Microsoft. We should brainstorm at some point. You know how to research these research tools. There's definite some really interesting.
Well, I'm going to post the article on how Dr. Ken Long teaches to manage risk and fear and greed, because that's part of it. Is we're limited only by our imagination on that. And that's how to brainstorm on that, or just using that as the work in progress, and then going through these lessons sequentially to bring the insight from the Fletcher treatment each week to the larger work in progress of how to develop the AI assistant. I'm going to put a handful of officers on an independent study on that to come up with something clever that we can try to design as a solution for next year. So I'm really excited about all that stuff. That it's a brave new world and very, very exciting. I almost wish I was 25, but I don't want to live through all that shit again. That stuff again.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. So let me go ahead and get us moved into the sacred circle here and get on about our business with lesson 5, and here we go. Art. Yeah, Art needs you to unmute.
I thought I hit it. I'm so sorry.
There we
Is
go.
that better? Yeah. So anyway, thanks everybody. The I like the exercise today, and it was I'll focus more on exercise too, and then the trading exercise a bit. But the hero that I picked when I was thinking about it was for some reason, I guess a military connotation, but James Doolittle. I guess that the colonel or whatever that came up with the idea of launching the lightweight bombers off of carriers there in World War II, at the beginning of World War II. Um, and I think when I kind of like when I thought about him and what he must have faced, right? It kind of struck me like how would he how would he help improve things in my life? And what came to me was one I think I could almost like see him defining the objective, right? Like what needs to get done and making sure that's connected to the overall why. And then taking a look and trying to identify any kind of the constraints or obstacles that are like that need to be kind of overcome or kind of go around. And then basically start looking at what can be done differently to kind of achieve that objective and either overcoming the obstacles or like I said, going around them. So that's for me, I think one of the biggest obstacles I have as I'm looking forward with trading is really finding, well, like, preparing and having a plan, which I'm beginning to work on. And then also kind of blocking out time um, and coming up with an approach that will fit the time that I have allocated now. And as opposed to not having as much as I would like and letting that stop me. So I'm going to keep going, thinking along those lines, and got more to report on that in the weeks ahead. So I'm actually excited about giving that a try and seeing how it works. Moving on to the trader exercise, I love that necessity is the mother of invention. And so I guess I've stated that I have a need, and now I'm putting my mind to work about seeing what inventions I can come up with to help me fill that need. And in terms of market conditions to shape strategy, so some of this I'll touch on briefly, and then touch a little bit on the workshop that I went through on Saturday. And the PRX crypto system was the workshop, and that was developed by Bill and Jeff, and they spoke very highly of you and quoted you often during that workshop. And they identified some good market conditions that they had built into that system, and the workshop really just illustrated the benefit of that, like really clearly to me. I think, I mean, because they basically use that PSAR and the 200 period moving average, and just the beauty of something that simple of a tracking of a market condition and deciding whether or not that you were going to be able to trade or not to trade was just like made crystal clear to me. And there's others that I've used periodically. Obviously they'll help me identify the direction and strength of the trend, right, in which way I'm going to trade. And then also taking a look at the sectors and the constituents of those sectors and seeing which ones are the strongest or the weakest, right? Because depending upon which direction I'm trading, that's going to be kind of important. And then also conditions, identifying overextended conditions. So, and then how much time is spent developing new versus refining techniques? I think for me, it's mostly all new because so much of this is still relatively new to me. So I'm not like an experienced trader that has certain systems and stuff that are in place, and I've got a lot of time spent on them. So it's all kind of new, and I'm just learning. The other question, what's my strategy for adding risk to systems in order to see how they play out in practice? I don't have one, but I want to share from the workshop. I think this is what was meant by this question, but they mentioned that you had that recommendation in the, I think, of the testing to like throw a -5 hour event or something like that into the system. And because crypto is so volatile and it just anything can make it swing up or down. So if that's kind of I think, a good way of doing it, if that's kind of what you meant. And then the mix of capital between exploration, kind of investigation, or exploitation, efficiency. I'm not too sure about what you meant by that question. I think it's more than just profit preservation and profit maximization. But maybe you can touch on that later. And my go-to strategies right now, I mean, in terms of systems, like I said, I'm new, so obviously PRX is a new one for me, and I like it. It's simple and it's works for across multiple time frames and multiple instruments, so it's a very good fit for me to just get something started. And then also, I've attended Gabriel's workshops and a lot of his follow-on clinics, if you will. So yeah, his systems S1, S2, and S3. And in terms of, do I begin to look for new ideas? It's a good question. I think in general, I do try to look for new ideas. I know when I ended up really deciding to take a workshop on, like, a systems workshop, my first one was Forex. And the reason I picked that was because it had nothing to do with anything I'd ever traded before. And my rationale behind that was I thought it'd be best if I could start with like a clean slate. And I think that was the right decision for me to make. And I think that's a good approach for me to follow also in the future for new ideas. Just kind of look in an area where I've never really looked before and see kind of what comes up, and then see how I can apply that to what it is that I'm doing. And I think also as I do trade more and I spend more time and kind of going over and analyzing my trades, then I think I can look for opportunities there to make good refinements. And that's it. Thank you. Aho.
Dan.
There we go. This is a very good exercise, lesson 5, and I did not really give it its due, but I'll give you my ideas that I do have looking at it, and definitely plan to come back to it and spend more time on it. Exercise 1, teaching or a tool, I'd have to pick the computer because that's been so important to my life. When I was 25, the computer now became a opportunity for employment, and I became a computer programmer. And I started with punch cards, although thankfully I didn't have to stay with them for any length of time. I moved on to mini computers, and now we're up to AI, which is, I guess you could say, of computers were ways of doing mechanical thinking of a sort. AI is just the next iteration, and we go on and on and on. And I've got a few books about how AIs could potentially be, could they ever be taught to feel emotion and things like that? And, can they really be creative, or are they just, like really good assimilators and mungers of all the stuff that humans and other AIs have written and put out on the internet? But as Ken said, we're going to, if we saw an explosion of more information put online in the last few years than ever existed in all the millennia before, we're going to see that again in the next few years or months. Pretty incredible. Going back to the computer, I remember the day when we were using mainframes and mini computers, and DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation, and IBM reigned. And Ken Olsen said, why would anyone want a computer on their desk when Microsoft came along with the personal, and Apple came along with the personal computer? Boy, did he ever have to eat crow over that, because DEC didn't last much longer. And it just warns us not to ever put on blinders. Never have that attitude that something is just a problem. Always see it as an opportunity. Identify a hero. I would have to say, thinking in this vein, maybe I'd say Elon Musk. He's really done a lot of innovative things. I read a biography about him 10 years ago. I wish it was updated. It's a very interesting guy, but I haven't gotten so far as to imagine how he might overcome a stalemate in my life. I'll have to think about that. Trader exercise. So going through these, how do I decide when it's time to make bold moves? That reminded me of the quote. It was actually from Brutus, the murderer of Caesar, not Caesar, who I thought it was from. But he said, there is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune. And so I think you kind of see that when the market's moving, and when the market's moving now, you can maybe get on that train and follow the PSAR. That's what I'm trying to do. I've been doing a lot of trading in the TradingView blind replay, as well as a few trades in the TradeStation simulator. But I really like the blind replay because you can just take a lot of trades and try a lot of different strategies and see how they work. And so that's been kind of cool. And just trying to figure out exactly that, how to determine, when we actually have a move that and jump on it before it's half over, and then stay on it without getting knocked out by your trailing stop that's trying to preserve your profits. Those are all the things that I'm trying to figure out. When is it time to dig in and continue to grind for small advantages? Well, I think in this kind of, when you have a sideways market and maybe you have low volatility, you could sort of choose, well, on one level, I might kind of like to choose just to sit it out, but that doesn't come naturally for me. How do you use market conditions to shape your strategy to gain advantages? I think pretty much as described, when the market is bullish and it's moving, that's most people's favorite. You can get a trade on and just watch it ring up the cash register for days, weeks, or months. On the other hand, I know traders that their favorite market type is bear volatile, because it moves very fast. Yes, present company. If you want to trade in a short time frame, there's nothing like a good bear market. So the important thing is to understand those market conditions and shape your strategy. And if you do have that sideways market, I think there is something that I can do that comes up in a later question. It's the selling options. I like that for the sideways market in my longer term strategies, and RLCO. How much of my time is spent developing new ideas as opposed to refining techniques and well-established patterns? I guess I tend to be pretty creative and analytical, probably too much so sometimes. I'll tend to system hop when I should just sit with the system I have and make it work. I'm really happy to be in this place now where I found, the RLCO systems seem to be a good all-weather systems, that can work on all time frames and all market types. And you just have to find a way of using it that fits you. And so that's been good. So as far as that goes, it's been more of an iterative process for me, just trying to figure out how I can learn what's going to work for me and how I can um, get to profitability. Now, my strategy for adding risks to systems to see how they play out in practice, I'll use markets money. With my early adoption of systems like the ETF2 or the Reed's BB gun trader that I've been using, that's been working okay, short, an RLCO. When I've tried to take my first baby steps, with $20 risk or $50 risk or $100 risk, something small. A couple times I've kind of felt like I was bleeding too much and had to back off. But if I got it working, I was thinking what I could do is I could sort of, the first few months, I could take, those little 50s or 100s or 20s that I was racking in, and I could just add that onto the risk pile and increase my position size commensurately to the number of positions I allow myself to have open simultaneously. And then as I went on, and maybe I wanted to actually keep some of those profits, maybe I could only do that with half of the market's money. But it occurred to me when I was writing markets money there that I needed to formalize that in my plan so that I actually know how I'm going to do that and actually do it. Mix of capital between exploration and exploitation. Really, I only have a minuscule part of my capital on exploration. My go-to strategy right now, being that we're in this sideways market and I don't have anything else that's profitable or well-tested or trustworthy for me yet, I'm going back to selling options now, selling covered calls on some of the long positions that I didn't want to sell, or selling calls on gold, since I feel like, oh, gold, I can always have gold. If I can't trust anything else when the banks are failing, maybe I can trust that. When do I begin to look for new ideas? When do I go to the nearest neighbor? It seems kind of random what I go to sometimes, but I think I do both. Oh,
Jeff.
These lessons always seem to be pretty timely. And of course, this is an aviation one. So I've lived this thing for 30 years. The more things change, the more they just stay the same. So next week, I've got to go to Denver to give a presentation to a group of stakeholders in our industry who face some serious problems that they've been alerted to for at least 5 years, but it's gotten so bad now they think maybe there is a real problem they want to take a look at. So it's exactly this. The opening line is don't kill anybody and don't lose an airplane. That's almost exactly what I told my student 2 weeks ago. His personal mission is to survive the next 24 months and try not to crash the airplane and don't hurt anyone on the ground. It's funny, this order was given to Commander Peterson in December 1968, 3 months before I was born. Nothing has changed. We just have this cycle that we like to operate in. And we're forced, the way we navigate this is exactly the same as he did. So my acronym is SEE, safety first, then effectiveness, and then efficiency. We always give away efficiency first for effectiveness. If you're not being effective, then everything you did that day was unnecessary. So it was, all those risks were taken for no reason. It says the order was issued with best intentions, aren't they all? So the Navy was losing pilots. They thought it was due to the failure of the missiles. So they commissioned a study, which is what they always do. This was a problem, but not the problem. And then, you know, buried in that study is a directive. They passed the buck. You know, you didn't create the problem, but now you have to deal with it. Peterson's job was to enforce the rules, be safe, and reduce risk. You know, everything rolls downhill from top to bottom, and it's just a fact of life. It says Peterson thought differently. He didn't think, he knew, because he'd been in the fight for quite some time. He knew what the real problems were, so he addressed those instead of addressing the problem that other people thought was the problem. That, you know, all the people writing the books had never been in combat, so all these maneuvers look really great in training, and they fail immediately, you know, when you put a real enemy out there and not a simulated combative. So he threw the book away, which we do all the time. We write big, thick books, and we don't read them, and then we throw them away. Although there are some key elements that we keep out of those books because they're the time-tested rules that just can't be broken because people die and things fail. So he taught that every fight was unique and asymmetric. Made me think of trading. All the tools we use are built to fail. So expect problems and anticipate them. Same conversation we had in Phil and Griff's presentation this morning. The market doesn't look like the book, but it's still the same. You just have to adapt. Treat failure as routine. I think that kind of goes right in with Ken's teaching. We need to practice and rehearse and think about these things before we're faced with them, and then we have the solution. We just pull it out of our pocket because we've got it ready. If you never thought about it before, it takes too much time. You don't have time to figure it out. So one thing I always tell everybody, just, you know, don't just obey the rules. Obey the rules, but don't just obey them, because the guy that wrote that rule isn't out here with us. He's not, his life is not on the line today. You know, yours is. So by taking that approach, they increased their success rate 500%. And this suggests to me that he understood the problem and he addressed it. The Air Force got worse because they were addressing the problem they thought they had and not the problem that they actually had. The difference between two different schools of thought. At the closing remarks, it talks about the power of creativity. And, you know, I definitely have a new definition for creativity than I had when I started this class. And I'm starting to believe very much in creativity, but I can tell you from 30 years of experience, because I've been pretty creative in this way for a long time, but don't expect to be labeled as creative and celebrated and have parties thrown for you. Because another one of my sayings is there's a fine line between being a hero and a zero. And in the real world, it's the width of your result. If you're daring and bold and creative and you fail, you're usually on your own. But if you get a good result, then all of a sudden everybody likes it. And something that came to mind is I heard on the radio this past summer, a life flight helicopter requesting clearance from a tower to land near the airport, but not on the airport. And the tower has a rule, you know, they own the airport, but they don't own the property around it. So as a helicopter pilot, you land wherever you want to land. It was just one of those conflicts where the pilot didn't really need permission to land there, but that ground was within the sphere of influence of the control tower. So the tower operator is required to say a certain thing. And what he tells the pilot is, he said, you're cleared as requested, cleared to land at your own risk, which I've heard that 1,000 times. But what I hadn't heard was the pilot's response. You know, the pilot of the medevac helicopter keyed the mic and said, isn't it always? It's always my risk. The guy in the tower doesn't have that risk. So exercise one, definitely have a long list of things in my industry that we've tried that work, and a long list that we've tried that didn't work. we've been pretty good about keeping the things that work and getting rid of the rest. As far as trading goes, in my career, the computers revolutionized trading. It replaced the open pit trading and the market makers. And so now we have 24-hour access to global markets from our smartphone, reduced broker friction, bid-ask spreads are tight, liquidity is better than ever. I used to wait a half an hour to see if I got filled, on something that I requested from my broker. Exercise 5, the trading. I have made bold moves in the market before. I don't make any moves now that I consider bold. The ones that work make you feel like a hero, and the ones that don't make you realize that you're a zero. So I try to work within the framework of my systems. There was something that happened last week, and I entered a trade just after the opening on Square SQ, and then I realized how crazy volatile it was. It wasn't readily apparent because of the scaling of the chart with the massive gap. And I actually exited that trade with a small profit because I couldn't, with the risk box that I had devoted myself to, I couldn't handle that trade with that massive amount of volatility. Turns out Ken took the exact same trade and made a different choice, which was to go half size position with twice the risk box, which was the better solution. So I learned something there. When is it time to dig in? I think all the time. Like, it seems like the best trades are the hardest ones to take. So I'm almost wary when I see a trade that looks like a sure thing, because every other trader sees that same trade, and they're pretty smart guys. How do you use market conditions to shape your strategy? I think you have to do that all the time. How much time is spent developing new ideas? I've been focusing on that quite a lot for the last few months. But typically, once I have a strategy that works, I'm pretty happy to just trade that, because I've been in the game a long time and I've looked for the holy grail, and there's no way to experience the winning trades without the losing ones. If there is, I've never seen it. So most things that work now have always worked, and I think they'll continue to work in the areas that I trade. So I'm spending my time now working on my skills and my psychology, not really looking for a new system, although I have started trading Ken's sniper system. Yeah, when I got this new system, I just started trading it immediately at a very small position size. And I'm at the point now to start adding more risk. So it's probably, 1%. Well, it's a very small size now, but it's about to be more. So the mix of capital, it's about 99% to 1% now. It's about to go to 90-10. I'm always willing to change that ratio whenever the data, tells me that something should be done, which in the past has been to go basically get flat the market in that system, as a strategy. I basically have two strategies, testing the third one. I have a directional swing, medium term to long term swing strategy, and then an option selling strategy, which works in several market types, but it thrives in sideways chop. Looking for new ideas. Yeah, I went with the nearest neighbor theory. So I looked for a better way to do what I know works for me, which is swing trading. And Ken's technique, my weakness was short selling, and I've never stopped and reversed, scaling in and scaling out. So those are the specific things that I'm working on now. But Ken's system is very similar to the one I trade. It's just better. And from what I've seen and still see, markets go up, down, and sideways. You see range expansion from small ranges to large ranges, and then that attracts everybody in to that side of the market, whether it's long or short. And then it just goes sideways and it shakes them all out, and then it picks a new direction. And you look at any chart going back 35 years, and that's pretty much what it does. I think as long as humans are trading, the markets of tomorrow will resemble the markets that we have today. the volatility has increased in the last couple of years, which is actually kind of nice, but kind of the same. So I subscribe to the philosophy that simple is best as long as it works. Make it as complicated as it needs to be, but no more complicated than that. And I think that's all I got. So, aho.
Luke.
I found this lesson really good. I went back to my notes from last time and realized I did not answer any of these questions to my satisfaction. So I entered a bit of a deep dive into this one. Where are we? There. So just with the trader exercises, I find that I'm making bold moves at the start of the session. It's different trading the Aussie dollar as opposed to trading the DAX or the FTSE when their market opens. The Aussie seems to just go into consolidation from my 8:30 in the morning until about 10 o'clock. So there's always a breakout. But when the London and German markets open, there's been pre-market trading, and that's been moved up quite a lot before their market opens. So it's bold to take an initial position because the volatility of it is quite high and it can move back quite quickly. So my strategies that I'm following at the moment in terms of RLCO, RLXD, PSAR flips, but having PSAR based on 0.08, not 0.12, that means that sometimes those moves can be already gone before I'm actually in. So it would look on the chart like I'm entering very late. So those are bold moves because it's not following the system that I've set up, but it's still following the same RLCO architecture. It's just I might be able to get into the move sooner, and I've got to be able to stop it quickly if it's faltering. And that's what I did on Monday. Also, I reflected a bit on what I once considered before I started trading, and I would have considered it's risky to trade. And I would have found it would have been bold to actually just trade. I would have thought capital is mine. I don't want to lose any of my capital. I want to find the best system. I want to find the most reliable system, and I don't want to lose money. But what I think now is I need to get involved. I didn't learn all this for nothing. I also think it's not risky to take trades when you've got ruthless risk management and you can manage your risk as the trade is on. Also, back to the start of when London and German opens, it's bold to hold on when it's got a massive Z3 move and it's retracing. I find that's bold because if it's doing the a 1, 2, 3 exit on a 1 or 2 minute chart and you're still holding on, that's the feeling of why are you holding on? Are you just thinking it's just going to be the trade, or do you just need to work out where your exit needs to be? And that doesn't happen as often as what it used to. It happens sometimes in the dollar, like it did this morning with some CPI figures, but I don't trade those news announcements. One thing I noticed also was when I've been trading and marking up the chart, I've been making sure that one trade doesn't dictate the next trade that I'm trading. Otherwise, those trades are dependent on each other and they're not mutually exclusive trades. They're very dependent. And the more I think of that, the more the R multiples are going to be skewed. And then it's very difficult to put position sizing strategies on that because those trades are interdependent. That was just something I just noted when I was doing that question. I think Sanal also said in last year's one, if you feel like you want to, and also it was someone in the US session, can't remember who it was. If you overrule your rules due to a feeling or an instinct, then fine, do it. But then you need to review it later and then work out what the difference in the R multiple capture has been. And if it's going to be a change in your system, fine, you need to go do some back testing on that and see what that change in system rule is. Next question, when's it time to dig in and continue to grind for small advantages? Dan said it really well. When it's in consolidation and SQC, and we normally get that on the Aussie 5-minute from our 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon until the London session sort of takes over, which is now because of daylight saving, from about 4 o'clock. So if I'm not in a move already, I would potentially not enter a trade because nothing's really happening. There's no news announcements unless an RBA announcement. So that's grinding for a small advantage. If I'm already in a trade, I'll look for potentially holding on because it might move further when the next session takes over. But I won't be entering a trade. So Noel also said it really well, need to compartmentalize the time of day. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end of a session, and there's going to be different ranges dependent on which time you're trading. So, and that's the case obviously with the, I noticed with the Aussie dollar and the DAX and the FTSE, and to be aware of those ranges because there's no point trading an MMRB size that you would trade at the end of the session, at the start of the session, because those ranges are going to be very much bigger or smaller depending on which time you're trading. How much of my time is spent in developing new ideas as compared to refining techniques in well-established patterns? I'm always looking for new ideas, and I think I'm looking more at the session ranges in trying to split it up because it's different. There's different mentality of working out when it's just hitting the noise in the afternoon session and when it's in consolidation phase, in the noise phase, and just trying to steer clear of that and then coming back for when the new guys take over. Also looking at it in terms of visual boxes. We did this before, I remember the live trading session at Kansas, putting a visual box over and seeing how you can potentially trade that based off the trough or the peak of the RL10. Now I'm finding that is interesting, but it's very difficult to trade that. You can do it at the end of the day, but doing that while putting trades on, it's still a work in progress for me on that one. What is my strategy for adding risk to systems in order to see how they play out in practice? So a reason why I'll put additional scoops on is when there is an RL10 wiggle, and Ken notes that in bar by bar trading. When price has potentially hit down the dragon, closed above the dragon, and starts to consolidate, RL10 starts to falter, bit of a wiggle, then it moves back up. So there hasn't been a PSR flip because my PSR settings are a lot more generous. There hasn't been an RLXD, and in that case, it's just been a bit of a pause and a continuation back in the trade, back in the trend that we're going. What's my mix of capital between exploration and exploitation? I would say mostly I'm on exploration because the way I understand this question, I might be wrong, I'm trying to explore the trade. I'm trying to explore where this trade actually goes. And in doing that, the PSAR, in that it's a 0.08, it will mean that I'm in the trade for longer and I will not do a lot of stop and reverses. And sometimes I'll leave a lot on the table, but it means that I can also work while I'm also trading because I'm only waiting for the PSAR whips. It's cognitively, it's really hard to do it when you're looking at the screen because you can see a lot of if the price is retracing a lot, you can think I've just stuffed this trade up, but you've just got to trust the PSAR and just to see where it actually goes and investigate that trade. And the exploitation trades would be when there's been a massive move to Z3, Z3 breakout, and it's retracing, just take it and walk away, reset, come back, and then review at the end of the day, what would you have done if you followed the rules? And then is there a big difference in between your system quality number and your trader quality number? So what's my go-to strategy right now? Yep, as I said, RLXD, PSAR flip, and continuation based on, second scoops based on not a PSAR flip. There can be an RLXD, but they're using a PSAR flip and a continuation into the trend that I'm following. What else is there? When I begin to look for new ideas, do I start with my nearest neighbor? Absolutely. I'm also looking at the Euro yen, the US yen, because obviously the Japan market opens at 11 o'clock my time. And so there's a lot of volatility around that time. And then when Euro takes over, then that would be my afternoon as well. So I need to work out the session parameters for that, for when I'm going to enter trades and potentially stay out of trades when it hits an afternoon session for the yen. And then also the new ideas I'm really looking at is the FTSE because I haven't traded that before. It's sort of the same. It's very correlated with the DAX, but it will have different moves at the opening potentially, and that does feed into my nighttime. But because we lose daylight saving this week, it presents an opportunity for the first hour and a half, 2 hours from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. my time, which is good. So when I go through these questions, the trader questions, I always want to end up with a question that I need to ask myself in my playbook. And the best question I found this time was, in the weekly assess of my systems, am I pushing any boundaries or am I just following my plan? And how do I feel when I answer those questions? I might not be pushing any boundaries and that might be fine. I might just want to be following my plan. But at the end of some weeks, I might think, no, I want to mix it up. I want to do some exploration, do some R&D on some other systems. Do I have the time to do it? And then the next question would be, am I just playing defense or am I playing offense? Am I actually putting the risk in the market to actually see what's at play? Or am I just trying to preserve capital? Because if I'm just going to tread water and just have an expectancy of 0.1, then that's just going to be chewed up by commissions and slippage all the time. It's got to be at a certain point where I'm actually having this in a production manner, where I'm actually making sure that the systems I'm employing is actually seeing a return. So I'm asking that of myself at the end of every week. And then also print out and put on a piece, put on a board at work, because everything's on the computer, as I imagine all you guys are too. Print it out, put out the best trade of the week. Why was it the best? What did it make me feel? And I just reflect on that. And then also, this is a bit from my journal, focus on the losses. What did I do wrong? Did I do anything wrong? And what was the maximum favorable excursion on these trades? If there was none, if it was a 0.2% potential capture rate and I lost 0.6, flip that on its head and then say, I actually made 0.4 because I committed to losing 1R. So my spider sense is I lose on average on my losses, my average loss is 0.6. So what that actually means is in my psychological sense is I'm actually making 0.4 on all my losses if I commit to losing 1R. So if I can make sure that I have that mindset at the end of the week, reflect on the losses and then get back in the ring, then I can keep grinding. And that's probably the main thing I would take from this lesson this week. I can also share my screen, Ken, if that's all right. Just probably one thing I was noting as you were talking, Ken, is my take on creativity. From in this circle that we have, it's very safe. We're trusting each other. We're showing truth for each other and the opportunity to learn. And from that, individual creativity leads me to question my beliefs about trading, psychology, and my relationship to money overall. Then from that, yeah, that's questioning all the current beliefs and my structure towards trading. And, one of the questions from this exercise is, what's my strategy for adding risk to systems? And then from that, the output that I want to get from all these lessons is the plan, prepare, execute, assess of trading before trading and after trading, during trading. And then from that, what's the playbook of all of these in terms of my daily, weekly, monthly actions, to-do lists, checklists of systems, psychology, and money. So I'm putting a lot of emphasis on making sure I've got some output, and it's going to take a lot of time to get something together where I can actually just summarize the main outcomes that I want from the playbook, and then making sure I can have a checklist to make it easy, because I don't want to make it a 400-page mission statement of what I need to do. I need to just make sure it's very summarized. So that's me for this week.
Okay, so here's some goodies. Let's see if I can share this screen. Let's see if it's going to let me work here. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see that screen? Okay. Yeah, so here's some of my takes. Yeah, so first of all, the idea of adding some 5R losses to your testing protocol front loads the crisis, the stress test, so that you know that you've already pre-established some safety limits in there that can accommodate a sudden change in the system before it happens. It gives you some idea of your margin of safety. It reminds me of Jeff's idea of the maintenance test flight, then the acceptance test flight, and then the final release, so that guy can now fly the plane under its normal envelope with several layers of safety that have already been tested. For Art, the exploitation versus exploration. So Exploitation means that I've got a tested system that's ready for production, and I'm going to be very efficient, and I'm going to get the maximum return on the use of capital. Exploration means that I'm going to use the smallest commitment of capital to go out into the wilderness to discover important things that may lead to an exploitation. And now I want you to think about capital, not as we've discussed it tonight as the dollars that you have available to trade, but all of the elements that constitute capital. It's your time, it's your attention, it's your skill, it's your resilience, it's your network of trusted others, it's the tools that you use, it's your span of control. All of those things are the ingredients that you can use to develop a system that can exploit an opportunity for maximum return on capital. And so you can fritter away your capital by chasing rabbits, and you can fritter away your span of control by being sloppy in execution and trying to do too many things. And you can waste your time by trying to explore when you should be exploiting, when you're trying to coach and reason when you should just be executing your prepared plan. So I want you to think of capital in all those terms. Yeah, PRX is a wonderful multi-tool that you can use on different asset classes in different times with a basic set of robust patterns. And so it's really good as a study guide for that reason alone. The idea of where to explore for the next opportunity, the idea of the nearest neighbor is making a tweak to a system that's already in production to see if you can soup it up a little bit, adjust the timing belt, ramp up the CPU. A scout that goes way out to explore brand new territories has the advantage of sort of like absolutely fresh and new and exciting. What you want to think about doing is exploring somebody else's nearest neighbor system that's new to you, because you are probably going to see something and ask a question that they can't see because they're just so close to it. And then if they do that for you, you actually get the benefit of teamwork in exploitation and exploration. That's one of the features of a trusted learning circle, is the fresh eyes that your friends bring to you, and you can trust that they're asking you questions out of courtesy and courage and respect for your effort and being vulnerable. And it's really so that everybody may thrive. So think about your accountability partner and your research team as a way to skin the cat twice: exploitation and exploration. It's not even really a decision this or that, as long as you're spending capital in both of those areas. Not just money, but time, attention, communication, commitment. Just think about the importance of reframing. When we asked those deans and professors what were the challenges or the issues with ChatGPT, it launched them off in that direction without thinking, or thinking in the direction they were pointed. If you change that to problems and opportunities, you end up framing the trade in both directions. That is such a normal habit of mind for me, that I'm direction neutral, that it was an automatic thing for me to look at both sides of ChatGPT, because I'm used to trading that way, of framing my trades and following price. If ChatGPT is inevitable, it's better to join them. If you can't beat them, join them. You know, get on the winning team. Don't stay wrong too long. I'm thinking about how to use Koala to answer all the questions as I teach them in all these trading exercises, to see what Koala says about explain the difference in business between exploitation and exploration, and see what it comes up with as a way to start generating some fresh look at my old or routine material. The idea of PRX is an all-weather system with robustness. There's times to optimize, and then there's what you carry with you when you're exploring the wilderness and taking on challenges, the ability to trust in that old Betsy, or my good old machete, that 18-inch short sword from the Romans that conquered the world. That's a pretty good thing to carry. I'm willing to face a coyote with that if I had to, or a pack of them, because I can swing it all day. Think about the power of the RL10 and the magic of the R10 math, because it represents 1/10 of a range stat. When you take one MMRB, there's 9 available boxes. Like if you got it off the low and it moved an MMRB and then you got an entry, there's 9 more available in that direction. But if you double the risk box and take half the position size, you have exactly the same number of dollars at risk, but you've given it more leeway and more flexibility and a loose, light, gentle hands on the reins. And it's still 5-1, or in this case 4-1, because you've given up 2 boxes. There's still 8 above. It's still 4-1. You can actually make a triple MMRB and still have 2-1, plus some change, because you've given it 3 MMRBs, which is almost a frog box, and there's still 2 of those available to a range stat. So the power of the R10 to give you flexibility in deciding how much to put on the trade is incredible battle drill. It's small, medium, or large. Good, better, best. Or good enough, better, best. I like what Luke said about, I used to think that trading was risky and that not trading was safe. I believe exactly the opposite now. Not trading means I have the courage of my convictions. What kind of confidence do you have to say, yeah, the decision I made 10 years ago is still the right one for the next 30 years? Really? Wow. Be careful on that one. Yeah, capital isn't just your money at risk. It's time, attention, resilience, span of control, and the tools. The idea of the visual box trading strategy is one that it takes all the indicators off except the size of the MMRB, and then you just manage that little yellow zone box and price moving up. And it is a refreshing, fresh way to look at price action directly, because you can't be distracted by any of the indicators. I'd like you to answer the question, or think about the question, how you would answer it. How much gas is typically in the tank for this kind of move in this symbol? How much gas is in the tank at the start of the... It's the normal PSAR length plus or minus a standard deviation. That's how much it's not crazy to think is available in the gas tank. So the average PSAR length, so you want to see just in general for the different things you have, how trendy is it? Got to come up with an indicator to count PSAR dots and do the math to find that answer. And then I would start with half a tank minus a standard deviation is sort of the minimum reasonable expectation for gas in the tank. Should you trust your gut or trust your rules? It entirely depends on the decision you're going to make. If I'm getting in, I trust the rules. Why? Because the rules are designed to make me feel maximum nervousness about this trade, because all I can see is how easily it fails. So I might as well just take the 1R loss in my emotions and then be surprised when I only take a 0.4 loss. That feels like a 0.6 win, which is an average win. If you could average a 0.4 loss and average a 0.6 win, and it's a coin flip, you have a 3-2 you have a coin flip that pays 3-2. You would play that forever in Vegas. Just think about that. If your average loss was 0.4 and your average win was 0.6, you're only getting 1/3 of the 2R that you were aiming for, but you still have a bulletproof system. You would trade that every time you could at the lowest level of risk that would allow you to achieve your objectives. So I'm going to trust my rules on entry when push comes to shove, because they are designed to make me feel absolutely horrible. That's how I know that the rules are still working, is that I feel terrible about the entry. But if it's an exit decision and I say, well, my rule is to wait for the PSAR to hit or just take it now, and my feeling is take it now, I take it now. Because I would rather be out wishing I was in than in wishing I was out. So if I have to override in the direction of, hey, 10 million years of evolution and my spider sense intuition that's allowed me to live 65 years when I shouldn't have, versus the formal rules that I've developed, hey, I'll take my gut all the time when it comes to fear. So If it's an exit decision, I just get out, no matter what the rules say. If I can't take it, just get out. I know how to get back in. I use the rules to get back in. And the rules to get in are going to make me feel uncomfortable, so I don't trust my gut on the entry. Just hold my nose and take the trade and write it off as a 1-hour loss. And then if it isn't, I'm favorably surprised. It can only go up from there because I've already felt the loss. Now what I want you to do on a piece of paper is draw 2 circles, one big one and one small one inside the second. Inside the big circle, draw a small circle that intersects the larger circle at some point. The larger circle represents the body of all human knowledge or the body of all your personal experience. And if you can make that smaller circle represent that safe space of absolute trust inside your personal experience, that's what the true story circle is. And you don't have to worry about anything that's inside that circle. And you can leave from that base camp to the edge of the big circle and investigate freely the area where creativity dominates to see if we can add new information. What I think the AI and the chatbot and all these rules and stuff do is help us not with creativity, but with an orderly representation of the knowledge that we already have. I don't have to be creative with that. I just got to be efficient and economical with organizing the stuff I already know so I get out of my own way, so I'm not fumbling around with the things that I already know. And that's not creativity in some sense, but it's really all of the other levels of Bloom's taxonomy of learning. It's knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, and synthesis. I was talking with a guy today who said, you know, that chat GPT you're talking about, it can never be creative. I said, I don't need it to be creative. I'm creative. I need it to take care of all the other stuff. Safely, reliably, routinely, confidently, so that I have a strong base to depart from to go be my creative bad self. That's where I excel. I just need ChatGPT to work all of the other stuff inside the bigger circle. That's your schema. That is your representation of knowledge you already have. We want to be organized and efficient with that and use other people's schemas where it makes sense to help us understand the map of the territory of what is known. I need creativity to venture out into the wilderness, equipped with all of those bulletproof tools and equipment, the reliable ones that I can act on without thinking. That's when you cross the LD, the line of departure. That's the entry into the trade. You don't cross that line until you are ready to work, ready to trade. Period. Let's go. And then you're as prepared as you can be, ready for whatever it'll get. And then you have a safety valve to get back into the circle because you got security and you're only venturing as far as your risk capital requires you to go. And that's your choice. How fast can I get back into safety? How much can I, if I lose the risk capital on this venture, it's 1 hour. I already felt the loss of it. Anything that I come out of there with is gravy. So that's what I wanted to say about, in response to your guys' stuff. There is a mountain of gold in that short soliloquy, if I can say it that way. And I got us at 8:33, and I'm already late. So for the next one, I want to do a quick checkout here by hitting the tones and ask you to come up with the word that comes to mind, and that will guide you going forward. That's the power word that will bring all of this stuff right back to the surface for you to focus, in addition to the other things you're doing, to help you think about what you're focusing on. That is your inner monkey's gift to you, the thing that it puts to the surface that it knows that you should be thinking about. Your job is just to figure out why and what does it mean for you. Okay? All right. So listen for the tones and listen for the word. Jeff.
Focus.
Dan.
Questions?
Art.
Objective.
Luke.
Offense.
Gasoline. I want to do a quick exit here and say thanks, guys. I want to get this processed and going, and give me a 10-second checkout and a quick farewell as we prepare for the next session. Jeff.
Yeah, I'm just going to focus on my process that I've established. I've got, I think, around 220 trades in the last 30 days. I'm going to do that till the end of the month, and then assess and probably become a 30-minute trader out of necessity. And it's kind of where I like to live anyway. But prior commitments and other things just are going to dictate that.
Cool. Dan.
Well, I'm feeling really good about the 30-minute trading. I think in a few weeks I'll be ready to go back live out of the simulator, and so I'm just going to keep working that process and testing it. Oh,
Yeah, those trades from last week felt like you were onto something.
thanks.
Luke.
Yep, still grinding. Try to do 2 different sessions a day for about 3 or 4 days a week, and just getting my getting some systems set up so TradingView can do some backtesting on the system that I've got on US stocks as well. But yeah, still really enjoying the creativity. I hope.
And Art, I think I didn't get you yet.
Yep. So just be working on my plan and identify my objectives that I want to achieve.
Awesome, fellas. Hey, I'll call this to a halt. We'll be ready for the next session in about 5 or 10 minutes. I got to do a quick print on the reports and get ready. So here we go. Cheers, guys. Well done.